It's time to bring back the shame. I'm Jessica Denson, and this is Lights On. These are the words of Felon Trump's hand-picked candidate for governor of North Carolina. Quote, "Some people need to be slaves. I wish they would bring it back." MLK is a, quote, "effing commie bastard," and, quote, "I'm a black Nazi perv." Okay, now hold that thought. We're going to get back to this story. I know it sometimes seems like the rich and so-called powerful don't get taken down until they do. Just look at Harvey Weinstein, R. Kelly, and just this week, Sean Diddy Combs, abusing and silencing women with impunity for years until their worlds come completely and utterly crashing down. Sean Combs, as were Kelly and Weinstein, was denied bail this week for charges of sex trafficking and is being rightfully held in pretrial detention. This is the appropriate standard for a defendant who threatens to intimidate witnesses. And if you're thinking this is where Donald Trump belongs right now, you are absolutely right. But in 45 days, all indications point to the fact that his world is about to come crashing down too. We've all been living in this insane ecosystem, media ecosystem, information, political ecosystem, where a convicted felon, a serial liar, a woman abuser, a man with serious mental health issues is propped up by an entire party, by men and women who know better. He consumes our airwaves and threatens to rob us of our freedom and our democracy. It is insanity. And this latest bombshell from the Republican candidate for governor in North Carolina, Mark Robinson, is the kind of story that should stick and not just fly under the radar. Robinson, like Trump, is a Nazi sympathizer, a Hitler aficionado. This story, like the assault at Arlington Cemetery, like the terror in Springfield, Ohio, like the 34-count felony conviction, like the deadly insurrection on our nation's capital, should stick. Not a single one of these stories should become yesterday's news until Donald Trump is yesterday's news. So we have 45 days, not just to defeat Donald Trump, but to bring complete and utter shame to all those things that deserve shame and to the people who have propped him up for power and gain. And this is really important, to welcome our fellow Americans who have been hoodwinked by these lying, fear-mongering hypocrites. Now, I am not saying that we are responsible for their salvation or should have sympathy for their ignorance, but we should welcome them out of this cycle of abuse into the light. We can welcome their redemption and awakening and the final crashing down of this sick cycle of abuse that our country and world has been subjected to. So welcome to Lights On. I'm Jessica Denson. I did my part 7 years by filing a pro se lawsuit to challenge human rights abuses that I experienced when I was in that cycle of abuse, believing right-wing propaganda and ultimately working for the Trump campaign. And I came to my awakening. I came clean and I battled these forces and brought them down in the courts. And you better believe that my fight in bringing down the lawlessness of Donald Trump through these weaponized contracts that he used to silence people for years has been very significant in breaking the cracks of this so-called impervious armor that he has. We are breaking it more and more and more, and we're getting in closer and closer. And of course, as I always say on this show, the devil is busy because he knows his time is short. So Donald Trump and his acolytes, his enablers, are trying to pull out all the stops in states across this country to undermine what looks like a very certain Harris victory. So we're going to talk about a lot of these things today. We also had an amazing star-studded event with Kamala Harris and Oprah yesterday. I'm going to highlight some of my favorite clips from that event and really how it brings out the role that each one of us has in this moment in carrying this mantle and preserving our democracy, understanding our roles in history. Like I always say, what an immense honor it is for for us to be the ones to save this beautiful country of ours. So we got a great show for you today. I want to start off with Mark Robinson, because he said something yesterday denying what has been a very fleshed out and excellent reporting job from CNN, where they went through these old posts on a pornography site called Nude Africa and found dozens of disturbing comments from Mark Robinson under the username Mini Soldier, SOLDR, which he used on a lot of different forums. And they did a lot of fact checking, cross-referencing to make sure that when they were identifying these as Mark Robinson, they were in fact him. I'm going to actually, let me just read a few more of them, because I gave you a couple of the worst at the top, but there's more. He talks about looking in through vent covers to young girls taking showers. He says, I sat there for about an hour and watched as several girls came in and showered. Now, this is also a man who has made quite a hype about the transgender bathroom issue. I'm going to quote him from a few months ago. He said, or actually back in February, he said, if you're a man on a Friday night and all of a sudden Saturday you feel like a woman and you want to go into the woman's bathroom in the mall, you will be arrested, or whatever we got to do, Robinson said. We're going to protect our women. So that was him, February of this year. Of course, his true colors were on a pornography site from 2000, I think it was like 2010, 2011, talking about looking into shower stalls of young women, bragged about getting aroused from this experience. He also said that he liked watching, quote, tranny on girl porn. That's effing hot. It takes the man out while leaving the man in. And yeah, I'm a, quote, perv too. This is the man fully endorsed, embraced by Donald Trump. We'll play the clip in a minute just to remind you how much he's embraced him, who is running for governor of North Carolina right now. And because these people think that shame no longer exists, this guy's not going to drop out of the race. He will stay in. He will stay in. And the Donald Trump campaign and Trump himself will not pressure him to drop out of the race, because they think shame is non-existent. Well, we're going to show them shame is a real thing. So you have all of that. I told you what he said about Martin Luther King, his thoughts about slavery, more very disturbing comments about violating women. And he said the moral of one story where a woman was violated was, don't F a white bitch. Okay. I just want to put all these things out there so we understand. I even, was watching the report on CNN last night, and I had to wait a couple minutes before it actually got to what Mark Robinson said in these posts. And I just really wanted to put it up top for you today, because this is how sick it is. And this is the Republican platform. This is the Republican platform. They do not care who they prop up. And Mark Robinson is really just a secondary figure to his leader and mentor, Donald J. Trump. So before we get to Robinson's defense, which is going to lead us down a very interesting trip down memory lane, which I think you're really going to appreciate, let me just start off with how much Donald Trump has embraced Mark Robinson. Here you go.
He's been an unbelievable Lieutenant Governor, Mark Robinson. This is Martin Luther King on steroids. Okay, now, I told that to Mark. I said, I think you're better than Martin Luther King. I think you are Martin Luther King times 2. Mark Robinson. He's doing good. He's got his own race up. He's fantastic.
Thanks also to one of the great stars of the party, one of the great stars in politics, Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson.
One of the strongest and bravest new voices in the Republican Party. He's been a great supporter of mine, and I'm a great supporter of his. Your incredible Lieutenant Governor, Mark Robinson. Mark, stand up, Mark. Good job. Thank you. Thank you.
Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson of North Carolina, and his wife, Mrs. Robinson. What a job you're doing. He's the hottest guy in politics.
Hottest guy in politics. Okay. So as I mentioned, Mark Robinson comes out yesterday and denies everything because that's just what, that's just what Republican men in the Trump era do. They take stories that are verifiable on their face. Don't believe your lying eyes. They tell you these things are not true. Now, I told you a couple of weeks ago, I think for the first time on this show, that when the Access Hollywood tape came out and the subsequent allegations of sexual abuse against Donald Trump in 2016, I didn't believe any of them. And there's some more context to how particularly I received the Access Hollywood story because of my work in the entertainment industry and kind of my own personal experiences. And I put the best construction on a very horrible, horrible comment because I already had a very strong confirmation bias to support this man. And I disbelieved all of the women. I didn't really even look into their allegations, but at face value, I discounted them. I'm telling you this not as an excuse, not as an explanation, just as an explanation and for perspective, and to hope to reach anyone out there who is thinking to disbelieve what is clear as day in their face. We're going to go over some more of these stories of these women. And right before it, here is this brief denial, and listen for this justice that has taken away so many rights of women in this clip. Here is this brief denial that I want you to hear from Mark Robinson, and we're going to take it on the other side.
And folks, we've seen this type of stuff in the past as well. Clarence Thomas famously once said he was the victim of a high-tech lynching. Well, it looks like Mark Robinson is too.
All right. High-tech lynching. That's what Clarence Thomas used as a defense, getting himself onto the highest court in our land. We all know what a corrupt, they're in the scheme of corruption where there is so much in that Supreme Court right now, that corrupt Supreme Court. Clarence Thomas is at the top of it. All of the billions of dollars in gifts that he has gotten from his Republican mega donors, his wife, of course, being a ardent Stop the Steal advocate. And that's just one little window into all of her influence in politics that come before the court where he rules on these issues that affect millions of Americans, not least of which are women. But there he is, referencing Clarence Thomas, Mark Robinson, talking about it being a high-tech lynching. And, I think about, when I think about the women that have tried to warn us and the women that we have individually or collectively not listened to, and I include myself in having been in that camp for some time. Thank God I'm not there anymore. I want to thank those women and highlight those women. And those women's stories are not yesterday's news. There is one woman in particular who I think about all the time, and that's Anita Hill. And it may have been 30 some years ago, or maybe a little less. 30 some years ago that she testified before Congress and tried to warn the American people of this man who thinks it's okay to violate women, being someone who should not be on the highest court in the land. She tried to warn us all. We didn't listen. I'm going to let us listen to Anita Hill again today. Here's Anita Hill talking about Clarence Thomas.
It is only after a great deal of agonizing consideration and great number of sleepless nights that I am able to talk of these unpleasant matters to anyone but my close friends. My working relationship became even more strained when Judge Thomas began to use work situations to discuss sex. On these occasions, he would call me into his office for reports on education issues and projects, or he might suggest that because of the time pressures of his schedule, we go to lunch to a government cafeteria. After a brief discussion of work, he would turn the conversation to a discussion of sexual matters. His conversations were very vivid. He spoke about acts that he had seen in pornographic films involving such matters as women having sex with animals. On several occasions, Thomas told me graphically of his own sexual prowess. Because I was extremely uncomfortable talking about sex with him at all, and particularly in such a graphic way, I told him that I did not want to talk about these subjects.
So I'm glad, Mark Robinson, that you want to compare yourself with Clarence Thomas, because I think you are two birds of a feather, as is your good friend Donald Trump, who we know has done that and so much worse. You know, one of the stories, we're going to go to Kamala Harris with Oprah in a few minutes here because I really, really love these clips. But one of the stories from the accusations of women against Trump that I thought just blew over way, way, way too fast was a story that didn't come out until 2020 of a woman named Amy Doris. She was a former model and actress who had met Donald Trump with her boyfriend at the time at the US Open. And I'll never forget this story coming out in 2020. I mean, it was, like I said, these are all stories that should remain in the forefront, that should not just be blown over and then we just talk about policy issues like we have two normal candidates running on the policy issues that affect Americans. This is enough. This is enough. And this is just one of so many to have completely gotten Donald Trump out of our lives. Shame on any man who is supporting, man who has children, women in their lives, daughters, sisters, mothers, who can see a story like this and still continue to support this man. If you're not seeing it, here it is again. This is why we're playing it for you today. This is Amy Doris in 2020 talking about what Donald Trump did to her.
And which, by the way, is there's a door that you go through and the restroom is hidden behind it, so it's not visible to anybody that's in the box. When I came out of the bathroom, Donald was waiting outside the bathroom, and initially I thought that he was waiting to go to the bathroom, but that wasn't the case, unfortunately. I don't remember what he said, but he was said something, but I was just like, no, and I was like nervous laughing, like, no, get away. But then he just grabbed me, and he just shoved his tongue down my throat, and I was pushing him off, and then that's when his grip became tighter, and his hands were kind of, it's like very gropey and all over, my butt, my breasts, my back, like everything. But he was just like, his grip was hard. You couldn't pull away. I was pushing his tongue out of my mouth with my teeth. It was pretty traumatic and jarring and shocking. It felt like it went on for a long time, but it probably didn't. I don't even know. But I couldn't get him to let go.
And she goes on to describe him as feeling like he had tentacles, like he was an octopus, very similar to the experiences of women like Jessica Leeds, who we talked about a couple weeks ago on the plane with Trump, not too different from E. Jean Carroll. And then the theme of these women who have spoken out is they have exposed themselves, first of all, to such disgusting scrutiny and doubt and disbelief. But also they have had to get to such a place of bravery to come forward with their stories. And I think a common theme among people like them is a sense of responsibility. They feel a sense of responsibility to share what they know, and they do it at great personal cost. I thought that theme was really, really resonant in the event that Kamala Harris had yesterday with Oprah Winfrey in Detroit, Michigan. I'm going to play a clip in a minute that really brings this out, but a lot of the guests that were there, they had the mother of a girl who was a survivor at the Appalachia high school shooting recently. They had Hadley Duvall, who of course has been a very outspoken surrogate for reproductive freedom on the Harris campaign. They had through many tears, the first public interview or appearance of the mother of Amber Nicole Thurman, the woman that we learned this week through ProPublica's reporting died because she was denied medical care for 20 hours in the state of Georgia 2 weeks after they enacted that abortion ban. Her life could have been saved, but the doctors in Georgia were afraid to go to jail for saving her life, so they did not. Her mother and sisters were present at this event yesterday, and the theme of all of these people that showed up, a lot of women, was a sense of responsibility. And they got past their reluctance, their resistance. You'd better believe this is 100% my story too, that you get to a sense of duty and responsibility that really just overcomes the fear and allows you to break out and do things that you didn't even know yourself you were capable of. And why? Why? Because you're doing something that's not just for you. I have this article that's it's like my lifeline. It's called Larger, and it talks about the need to bring our consciousness into a larger place and the kind of infinite capacities that we're opened up to when we stop living for ourselves and our cramped self-serving interests and start to live for others. And that's what every one of these brave people who have spoken out has done. And I think it's the reason why Kamala Harris right now is surging and soaring so much and is on track to win, because she came into this higher place through a sense of duty and responsibility, not for her own personal political advancement, very much in contrast to the sad man she's running against, but for the greater good. Listen to this interaction with Oprah. I love this and what she says about what changed in her.
A veil or something dropped and you just stepped into your power? I mean, literally, looking at you at a speech like the week before, which was a great speech, very nice. And then the next week, I saw you walking in the thing. And I said, what happened to you?
You know, we each have those moments in our lives where it's time to step up.
Time to step up.
Time to step up, you know?
Well, the moment you heard, I mean, I really have been saying to people, it felt like a veil dropped and you sort of stepped through that veil. Did you feel like that?
I felt a sense of responsibility, to be honest with you. And with that comes a sense of purpose. But I mean, we're all here and you all are taking time out of your busy lives, everyone here, everyone on the screen, because there really is so much at stake. You know, I have spent the majority of my career being concerned about the well-being of other people.
Yeah.
As I've said, in my career as a prosecutor, I never looked at a victim or a witness and asked them, are you a Republican or a Democrat? The only thing I ever asked them is, are you okay?
Are you okay? I know when I heard that.
You know?
Touch me.
And traveling this country and knowing what is at stake in terms of fundamental freedoms, what's at stake in terms of fighting against hate and those efforts to divide us. And I do know that I'm in a position to do something about it. So I felt a great responsibility. And the incredible power of the people, right? Who, you know, I'm not the only leader in this. We're all leaders in this. This is so much bigger than me. It's about who we are as Americans. And it's about making clear what we stand for.
Yeah. I felt a sense of responsibility, and with it came a sense of purpose. That says so much to me. I mean, it's like when you take an opportunity and a sense of duty that's been given to you. It's like it comes with this whole toolkit. You don't have to pre-plan how you're going to, break out into the world and accomplish and conquer all these things. If you're just willing to take that first step, that ownership of what is put before you, as small or as big as it may seem, you will be blown away by the kind of empowerment and ability that you feel able to accomplish after that. And it doesn't mean it's going to be easy. It doesn't mean it's going to be without doubt and fear and roadblocks. But that duty and responsibility and purpose that arm you from the beginning, they take you all the way. They take you all the way. So I hope that each one of us can really, look at that as an example and do that in our own lives. There's such a beautiful showing today in my home state of Virginia of early voting records just blowing through the roof. I think what I saw was by 1 o'clock today in Fairfax County, Virginia, which is actually where I spent a lot of my childhood. At 1 p.m., 1,528 people voted. That was well beyond the 1,213 total that voted on the first day of early voting in 2020. So obviously the enthusiasm is out there like crazy. People are engaged like crazy. I think we're going to see record numbers all over the country in this election. And I think people really do understand the stakes and are taking that responsibility and sense of duty in their individual lives to make sure that we do save our democracy. I want to address all of the efforts, not all of them, but a few of them that I really think we need to shine a light on that the Republicans are trying to hamper the electoral process with. After a short break from our sponsor, plus, some more great clips from Oprah and other stories that we really need to be paying attention to. So here's a quick break. We'll be right back on the other side. Okay, I was just looking at my outline. I have a lot of fun stuff and serious stuff for the end, but I'm going to fit in right now. I want to talk about the threats that MAGA is. Let's just start with the attacks on election workers. I mean, this is absolutely insane. I read a report today from CNN. More than 20 election offices have been targeted with suspicious packages just this week in Alaska, Arizona, California, Colorado. I'm not going to read every single state. 20 election offices with letters, some of these letters containing an unknown substance. This is what Donald Trump and his enablers who have allowed this big lie to spread for years and to ferment and not fought back and said that this man who spread these lies to keep himself in power should not be at the head of their party. They're responsible for this. They're responsible for this. It's unthinkable threats to people who are just trying to do a job, to serve their communities, to enable the democratic process to work seamlessly. It is not a, it's the grind. It's the hard work that has to be done to make our system work. And these people who did not enter to get into any public spotlight are being threatened and intimidated. God bless them. Thank you to every single election worker out there for your bravery. Thank you for stepping up and working for our democracy, doing the unglamorous work in spite of these disgusting threats that one of our two major parties enables. Thank you very much. We will continue to keep an eye out. I saw another report about the sheriff's office in Maricopa County. They have a lot of security measures in place, cameras everywhere, kind of a remote setup to monitor any kind of threats that are going on. We shouldn't be in this situation, but thank you to everybody who is putting the work in to protect our election process and the people who do the work to make it happen. Another thing that's going on that I want to shine a light on is Republicans pushing now to change the electoral process in the state of Nebraska. Now, Nebraska and Maine are two states that are not winner take all. So there's a county in Nebraska that includes Omaha, which has, more Democratic leaning, usually constituents than other parts of that very red state. It is not a winner take all state. So that one county has an electoral vote of its own. And Republicans now are trying to change the rules at the last minute so that Nebraska would be a winner take all state. And this, let me just play out how this could affect the election with certain different scenarios. So right now, if Harris won Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, and that one district in Nebraska that Joe Biden won in 2020, that would be enough to get her to 270, just with Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. Well, if they change the rules, she'd need to get at least one more swing state, either Nevada, Georgia, Arizona, or North Carolina, to get over the line. So you better believe that they are doing everything in their power. Now, the governor of Nebraska is a Republican, Governor Jim Pillen, but he has been reluctant to make these changes. In order to make them, he'd have to bring up a special legislative session. And he said just today that he would not call this session unless GOP legislatures show that they have enough votes to break an expected Democratic filibuster. It would be 33 votes. Right now, it looks like they could only get 30 or maybe 31. So what are Republicans doing? The likes of Lindsey Graham are headed to Nebraska to try to pressure the governor and other state legislators to make this change. If you can't win fair, you try to change the rules. That's what they're doing in Nebraska. It's what they are trying to do in Georgia, which we have talked a lot about on the show, them trying to make it so state electors can challenge the official vote count and do things that is not in their place. This is the place of attorneys general, of prosecutors, of other investigators to sort out any kind of voting irregularities, not of electors. And they're trying to put in a rule that's going to potentially cause chaos in Georgia and delay the ultimate counting of the votes on January 6th. And there are lawsuits. We've talked about it also. We had a very special episode on this show just to talk about the lawsuit that the Democrats backed by the Harris campaign have brought in Georgia to stop these efforts. So a lot to pay attention to already in this country. We have such an imbalance with the Electoral College where we do not elect our presidents based on the popular vote. And they are trying to take away one little sliver of proportionality that exists in the state of Nebraska to make it harder for Vice President Harris to win. Keep your eye on all of it. Let's go back to this event with Oprah yesterday. There were so many great moments. It's hard to choose just a few, but I wanted to play something that Tracee Ellis Ross said about childless women. This has been such an ugly attack on all kinds of people. The Trump Vance ticket, such an attack from people. I mean, and can we point this out, for goodness sakes? We're talking at the top here about a man who is obsessed in very lewd ways and racist ways with pornography. And this is a ticket that constantly tries to demonize Democrats as being perverts or having, doing things that are abusive to children or sexually explicit or whatever. And yet they're the ones that really have these problems. They're the ones that really attack families. They are the pro-death, not pro-life people when it comes to reproductive freedom and healthcare. And they attack the very people who lift our society up, whether they have children or not. Here's Tracee Ellis Ross.
I would like to say to you two women, thank you for what you represent, because as a 52-year-old childless woman, I want to say to the people who think that a woman's worth is measured in her baby count, I mean, shout out to all the amazing mothers, but the childless women have been mothering the world and elevating culture as aunties, godmothers, teachers, mentors, sisters, and friends, and the list goes on. And you do not need to push out a baby to help push humanity forward.
Amen to that. Thank you so much, Tracy Ellis Ross.
Yeah. You don't have to push out a baby to push society forward. Absolutely not. I'm going to take a turn. I'm going to take a turn to the other amazing person at the top on the Democratic ticket, Tim Walz, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz. One of the things that we all love about him is how much of a real guy he is. And he put out an ad today that brought his car fixing experience into view and related it to Project 2025. I really relate to this because I grew up in a single mother household, only child, and you basically got two women who figured out how their car needed to be fixed, made sure they didn't get taken advantage of by, mechanics or dealerships. So I learned a lot more about cars than most people as a young girl, and have fixed many things that I was told I had to pay hundreds of dollars for from dealerships by just doing a little research and getting the work done myself. So I appreciate a good mechanic telling you how to take care of your car and not run into those crazy expenses. Some other crazy expenses we're going to run into as a country if we elect Donald Trump and JD Vance. Here's Tim Walz talking about that.
All right, this thing, old school carburetor. You can always tell something about somebody's maintenance when how clean their air filter is. Look, to be able to work on this thing, you got a manual. It shows you exactly what to do to fix things on this. Donald Trump and JD Vance have a manual too. It's called Project 2025, and it's a way to stick it to the middle class while giving tax cuts to the wealthiest. Look, they didn't give me a manual for this if you didn't plan on using it to fix your truck. They didn't create that Project 2025 just to have it set around as a doorstop. We know who these guys are. We know they got a playbook to rig the economy. Let's make sure it doesn't. And you can always tell, again, somebody, if they keep a clean air filter, they do good maintenance.
Literally checked my air filter 2 days ago and it's good. So check your air filter too. But talking about the tax plan that Donald Trump and JD Vance have for the American people, and they're constantly, again, I will reiterate this. I try to do it as much as I can. The concept that our economy would somehow be better under JD Vance or Donald Trump is such a misconception. The Republicans for years, not just in the Trump era, but for years and years, they have been getting credit for being like the prosperity people or the good economy people. All they are is the people that, fortuitously get to take advantage of good economies that Democrats have created, then wreak havoc while they are in power, and then leave the mess to the Democrats that succeed them in office. And then they try to blame the Democrats for the problems they've created. So that's very much the situation that we're dealing with right now with, obviously we are still dealing with the fallout of the pandemic, which was a complete botched response by Donald Trump. And we are beating the world with this global inflation crisis that is a product of corporate greed, not bad economic policies of our very effective Democratic president and vice president. So that's all the correct view of the economy. But here's some other statistics on the economy, going just to what Tim Walz was talking about right there. Trump's Project 2025, I'm going to put this graphic up on the screen. I want you to look at this. Trump's Project 2025 would raise taxes on 90% of taxpayers, but cut taxes for billionaires and huge corporations. If you look at this, you see the green? That green is the percent change in after-tax income from replacing, as Trump has proposed, individual income and corporate taxes with a consumption tax. So those top two bars, those green bars, are the top 90 to 99 and top 1% of society, they would get 25% more income. Everybody else, from the 0% to the 89% threshold of earners in this country, would be making less money. And it is progressively less and less, up to 28% less income for the poorest Americans. So that's the real impact on the economy that the Trump and Project 2025 plan would have. Really, really hurting people who are already suffering a lot and desperately need relief from their economic woes. They do not want to relieve people in any way. I had gone away from this and on my list here, but I want to come back to it because on the theme of not letting stories fly under the radar that should stay in focus, Springfield, Ohio has continued to experience horror from Donald Trump and JD Vance's lies over the past week. They have not dialed these lies back. They continue to amp up the hatred. There has been one bomb threat after another, one store closure. I think they evacuated 2 Walmarts this week in Springfield, Ohio. They've had to continuously close public buildings and schools. Several colleges in the area have transitioned to remote learning. It's just been a complete hell in Springfield, Ohio. And as a guest that I had on yesterday, Eric Swalwell reminded us all, every town will be Springfield, Ohio, if God forbid we elect Donald Trump and JD Vance. I wanted to highlight the Haitian immigrants, legal Haitian immigrants, hardworking Americans who are fighting back against these vile lies that Trump and Vance continue to spread. They showed up at Trump's rally in Long Island this week and had a message for him.
No more hate! No more hate! No more hate! No more hate! Because we are here calling on all Haitians with any sense of dignity. Stand up and vote against because hate has no place on Long Island. Hate has no place in New York. And hate has no place in American hearts. We stand united. Yeah, you said it's until November, but we will bring this country to a different direction. And we hope that the Haitian community leads the way.
Yep, they're voters, Donald Trump. They are voters, and they're not going to stand behind you this time like they did so tragically in Florida in 2016, like we talked about last week. Anyone, again, I want to reiterate this, any group that thinks that Donald Trump is standing with them now. We didn't even talk about the disgusting way he is trying to court the Jewish vote. I mean, really? But any group that thinks that this man is going to stand on their side, let the Haitian immigrants be an example for you of just how bad a betrayal you will get from voting for Donald Trump. Let's just put a few more facts before we leave the Haitian story. Let's just put a couple more facts out into the ether. One of the lies that Trump and Vance have spread to terrorize this city is that crime is up under Joe Biden in Springfield, Ohio. Well, here's the fact. Under Obama, in Obama's second term, there were 30 murders in Springfield, Ohio. During Trump's term, there were 33 murders. Now, during Joe Biden's term, in the 3.5 years that he's been in office, there have only been 22 murders. So pretty much everything they put out is a lie. Jeremy had up on the screen another story that CNN put out this week of just wild 12 completely fictional stories Trump has told in the last month. One of them is that Harris had notes during her CNN interview. She didn't have any notes. Another one is that she's talking about bringing back the draft and she wants to draft your child and put them in war. That's absolutely false. She's not talking about bringing back the draft. He's talking about things happening in schools where your kid goes to school and comes home a few days later with an operation. This is, one of these transgender fear-mongering lines that he has. He said the school decides what's going to happen with your child. There is absolutely no single example of this happening in a school where schools are sending children home with operations. He has talked about, lied about Roe versus Wade many, many times. His flip-flop on this, obviously, because he completely owns the overturning of Roe versus Wade. But one of his insane lies, as you guys probably remember, is that it was very popular and everybody and every Democrat wanted to overturn Roe versus Wade. This is obviously complete nonsense. He has said that he was named Man of the Year in Michigan before he entered politics. This is just another complete insane concoction. There's no such thing as a Man of the Year award in Michigan in the first place. And it's just, again, he just gets away with the people who cover him largely just saying insane, nonsensical things. He's also made crazy, like he's attacked Haitian immigrants. He's made crazy claims about people coming out of prisons in the Congo and flooding into our country from prisons in the Congo. There is no evidence of this, on and on and on. So we will continue to shame them even more than shaming Donald Trump, because this man's got what's coming for, his days are numbered. His days are numbered. But these people that remain in our politics who have propped him up, they deserve every measure of shame and to continue to be called out for what they have done to prop him up and to deceive their constituents and their supporters in the American public. This is the greatest disease to infect our country more than any physical pandemic, is the mental malpractice that has been imposed upon our country by these people who engage in this division and fear-mongering and lies. Sick situation. All right. So before I leave you today, I want to turn to some serious things that I hope you'll pay attention to. One of the things that I'm writing about, or I've already written about in my book, and that was huge to me when I found out, was the Central Park 5. And I, if you've watched this show before, you might have heard me say that that's one of those things that if I had known the singular issue of the Central Park 5, that Donald Trump accused these young men that they suffered like they did in prison, having never committed a crime, and he advocated for the death penalty for them and then never apologized, but rather doubled down. I think on that singular issue, I would have never been able to support him in 2016, and I didn't know it. This is why ignorance is not bliss. And there's so many people out there that are still so ignorant to so many of the things about Donald Trump because they live in these information vacuums. But on the subject of wrongful convictions, if you've probably heard of the Innocence Project, they do wonderful, wonderful work trying to free people who are wrongly convicted and advocate for justice in their cases. One of those men who they are advocating for right now is named Marcellus Williams. He has spent 24 years in prison for a crime he did not commit, and he is set to be executed on September 24th, just 4 days from now. Last week, the Missouri Supreme Court blocked an Alford plea that was supposed to vacate his conviction and death sentence. This is a case where literally the prosecutors have admitted that the previous administration committed constitutional errors in his case. They believe that forensic evidence excluded him from committing the crime, and yet he is set to be executed. And there is one person who can grant him clemency and stop this execution from going forward, and that's Missouri Governor Michael Parson. I'm going to ask you, that's up, the tweet is up on the screen. If you can follow the Innocence Project Also, I'm going to ask you if you would join me in calling Governor Michael Parsons' office and asking them to not put this innocent man to death. That would be murder. The state would be murdering this man. Please call Governor Michael Parsons' office at 417-373-3400. 417-373-3400. We have 4 days left to save Marcellus Williams' life. And I most certainly hope that we can do it. This is so, so sick that I think, first of all, that we have a death penalty at all, but second of all, that we put to death innocent people for crimes they did not commit. While we've been doing this show, there's been a Harris rally going on, and our producer has pulled one of those clips for you. So we're going to leave you today, before we wrap the show, with a clip from Vice President Harris from the rally that's going on right now. Here it is.
Think about that. Just imagine Donald Trump with no guardrails. He who has vowed to be a dictator on day one. He who has called for, quote, the termination of the Constitution of the United States of America. And let us be very clear. Someone who suggests we should terminate the Constitution of the United States should never again stand behind the seal of the President of the United States. Never again. Never again.
Never again. All right, it's on us. We've got this in the next 47 days? Losing count of my days here. 45 days. We have got this to make sure it never happens again. She was there in Madison, Wisconsin with that. Probably one of my favorite bits of her rally speech, the most important to understand the stakes of what we are facing. All right, everybody, thank you so much for joining me on another live episode of Lights On. I want to thank you for any support you've given me in my battle against the Trump campaign. You know that this story of mine has flown under the radar in a way that it shouldn't too, kind of on the theme of things that should not have flown under the radar. And you can continue to support my legal battle at thejessicadenson.com/donate, thejessicadenson.com/donate. We are in the throes of it still. 7 years after I brought that lawsuit by myself, and we need your support and are so grateful for support that you can give or will give. It means the absolute world to me. Thank you, everybody, for joining me today. I love having you here, as you know. You can also find Lights On anywhere that you get your audio podcast by searching for Lights On with Jessica Denson. We absolutely love if you leave us a rating or review there. It really helps. And by subscribing to Jessica Denson on YouTube, which is where you will always make sure that you find the Lights On shows, both these live episodes on Friday and our short specials that we do throughout the week. Thank you, everybody, for joining me today. As always, let your light shine.